Oh boy. Botanic reactions here. And this is another video. This video is I'll just add.
My name is Squidward, and I end my life.
This video scissors is 11 minutes and 31 seconds long, so before we do it, botanic reactions here, and another video. This is by Mr. Nightmare. So let's get to it.
July 15th, 1976, Chowchilla, California. A day that the town would like to forget forever, yet remains a part of its history. At around 4 p.m., school bus driver Ed Ray was driving 26 students of Dairyland Elementary School home from
late 2016 all the way up to 2019. I used to ride a bus. It was bus one, but this is not. I think this is an international, but there's a classic 2001 international, what my bus driver used to call it. I enjoyed it. Let's get back to the video.
The revolver hops in the van to follow them. They drive.
Damn. That's sad. And not good. People. Man, my nose scratches. I don't know why people like to. I don't know. Can't talk. I don't know why people decides to steal a bus with kids on it.
Drive about a mile and park the bus in a bamboo thicket. The entire ride was apparently so silent that it added to the pure horror of it. The bus was hidden near the Chowchilla
something Union Ice Hood District. Something like that.
River, and 12 kids were ushered into the white van that was following the bus. Ray and the other 14
Now this, I know, that's an international.
kids got into the back of the second van that was waiting at the location. This one green.
There
was a partition separating the driver's seat to the back of the van.
I would want to experience this.
And all the windows were sealed. Ed and all the kids sat in the backs of these vans for 11 whole hours in the pitch black and extreme heats, all the while scared for their lives, not knowing what was going to happen next. Some of the older kids started to sing songs to try to lighten the incredibly horrible setting and make the younger kids feel better. Songs like If You're Happy and You Know It. Meanwhile,
if I was a bus driver, I wouldn't open up my door or stop. I think if I wham into the, if I experienced this and went into the van, the whole bus would be just totaled.
while back in town,
I have that game. I like it.
it only took 15 minutes after the bus not showing up that parents began to wonder what was going on. That's how punctual Ed always was. Within the hour, the missing bus was being talked about on the local news stations. Parents helped police by tracing the route the bus usually took, and by that evening, they found the abandoned bus. Within hours, 30 FBI agents arrived on the scene, and an intense investigation was underway to find the kids and Ed. Late that night, the vans finally arrived at a rock quarry 100 miles away in Livermore, 3:30 in the morning, at which point Ed had been awake for 24 hours. The back doors of the van swing open and two guys are waiting. Ed is the first one out. He's handed a flashlight and then told to strip and then go down a hole with a ladder in it. Above ground, roll call is being taken for the children, and their names are written as they're made to leave the bus one by one. Then they're stripped and sent to join Ed down the ladder into what was referred to as the hole, which turned out to be an old moving van, which had been placed in a large dugout.
That doesn't look like a van, it looks like a trail. Like a semi-trail.
Hole 12 feet underground. Ed immediately worried that the ceiling would cave in or that they'd suffocate. However, there were 2 air shafts, hoses that ran above ground to a tree. There were also some mattresses on the ground and a pathetic amount of necessities. Wonder Bread, peanut butter, potato chips, water jugs, and some holes carved for toilets. After all the kids were inside, one of the captors said, "We'll be back for you." Then a steel plate slid over the entrance and was weighted down by something. They of course begged to be let out, and many of the younger children screamed. Then they heard repeated thumps on top of the van. They couldn't see it, but their captors were shoveling dirt on top of the van, burying them alive. Panic ensued in the trailer when it was realized what was happening. Ed tried his best to keep everybody calm. Ed and Michael Marshall, the oldest kid in the group, who was 14, started to push at the lid to try and open it, but it was pointless. So by now, Ed instructed everyone to eat and get some rest. 12 hours later, the food was all already consumed, and the ventilation system that was keeping the van cool stopped working, and the hot July air started to fill the tight space. On top of that, the roof of the van started to cave in, and Ed knew time was very limited. The survivors, now adults, recount that around this time, as the walls and ceiling of the van were caving in and there was no food left, that they were starting to realize they wouldn't likely make it out of this alive. Ed and Michael started to pile up the mattresses in the trailer to get to the roof, which had been covered with a heavy sheet of metal and weighted down with 2 100-pound industrial batteries. After hours of effort, Ray and Michael wedged the lid open with a piece of wood and moved the batteries. They then dug away the remainder of the debris blocking the entrance. 16 hours after they had entered the van, the group emerged and walked to the quarry's guard shack, where a security guard called the police. Ed and the children were brought to a nearby jail, where they were fed.
At least they was found.
And interviewed by police. So the captors were 3 men, Frederick Newall Woods, James Schoenfeld, and his brother Richard. Frederick's family owned
They're crazy.
the quarry that the van was buried at. The 3 men were finding themselves in financial struggles, so they planned to hijack the bus and demand a $5 million ransom to release the group. The men would flee when they saw the group escaped, though.
That's just sick and stupid. Current, they was releasing their business, so they decided to hijack a bus. The police is not. The police won't give you money.
But they were found after a 2-week manhunt. They were found guilty and sentenced to life with the possibility of parole. Richard Schoenfeld was released in 2012, and James Schoenfeld was paroled on August 7, 2015. Frederick Woods was denied parole 15 times because he owned the quarry. However, in March of this year, he was granted parole as well.
Oh, that's stupid. He'll probably do it again.
Rightfully so, people of Chowchilla and people around the world were sickened at the fact that the 3 men who committed this kind of monstrous act could ever roam the streets again.
That's true. I don't want anyone doing that.
If Michael and Ed hadn't stepped up and dug the group out of that van, they likely would not have survived. Ed Ray died at 91 in May 17th of 2012, yet he is still to this day remembered as a hero. What you just heard may perhaps be the most well-known real tragedy to happen to a school bus full of children. However, it's a big world, and there are unfortunately many other horrific events that don't end up on the news. Then 14-year-old Donald, who wished to have his last name left out, was a student at a high school in Virginia and a member of the school's band. The bus driver's name was Robert, but everyone called him Bob. Like Ed Ray, he also seemed to enjoy his job and enjoyed the company of the students he drove, albeit these students were a little older. On October 20th of 19...
I put an application up in my old school for being a bus driver.
1995, Bob was driving a class of band students to and from their field trip. Donald was in this bus. The festival they went to ended late at night, around 10, and the drive back to the school where the students would be dropped off was a 45-minute drive away. The bus was on Route 58, a highway that runs through Virginia. Given the rural setting, there were basically no other cars on the road. But even when one car was relatively close to the back of the bus, it wasn't any cause for alarm at first. But when the car would start to tailgate the bus, instead of simply going around it, especially when the bus and the car were the only vehicles in sight, the students near the back of the bus started to realize and discuss amongst themselves how strange it was. Bob the bus driver would switch into the left lane to get the driver off his ass, and all the kids watched as the car floored it past the bus in the right lane. Some kids shouting things out the windows, to which the chaperone on the bus told the kids to knock it off. Donald recalls thinking the car was gone and it was just some aggressive late-night driver, when suddenly the bus slammed on the brakes so hard that everybody was slightly lifted from their seats, and there was an ear-piercing shriek from the
people. They was lifted because how big of the bus and gravity.
brakes. The bus came to a halt on the middle of the highway, and Bob told everyone to remain calm. The bus went into reverse for a few moments, then back in drive to another halt. Bob shouted at everybody on board the bus to keep quiet and don't panic. And hearing those words made Donald, along with his friends he was sitting with, and every other student on the bus whisper amongst themselves nervously. There was shouting from outside the bus from multiple men's voices. Then the bus doors opened, and two men wearing black pullover masks armed with handguns came on board, yelling at everyone on the...
Now, that's a good feature that new buses have handles where you can just open the door so you can turn on the bus and go on the route, but I think that's one flaw that helps wobbles or chaos get on it.
The bus to shut up in response to a few students near the front screaming. One of the men with the guns announced to the entire bus to empty.
Oh, so they're gonna rob them.
That's why MVP's bonus days are back. We're all
Empty their wallets of all cash, take any jewelry off, and to give it to them. They went row to row with their guns pointed at the kids, as each student took out their wallets and placed whatever small amounts of money broke high school students could be carrying in their wallets into the plastic bag the guy was holding, and the girls would take off their jewelry. Some students would scream as the gun was pointed in their faces, which would be a natural reaction for some. Donald described the moment he had a gun pointed at his head at 14 as emotionally traumatizing, that he felt his entire existence would end if he moved or looked at the guy the wrong way. The men didn't even make it to the back of the bus before they decided to leave in a hurry, most likely panicked that other cars would pass by and stop. The car floored it away down Route 58 with its lights off. Its license plates had been covered, indicating it was a planned attack, if the guns and masks weren't already indication enough. Everyone on board made it home okay. Just most of the students, as well as Bob and the chaperone, had been robbed. Unfortunately, bus robberies are a common thing though, and while most probably aren't caught on video, what you're about
Two. That's very true. I saw 3 or 4 articles about a school bus being robbed
to see what
or hijacked.
A school bus traveling along the N4 in Whitbank one Friday night this past February was attacked by armed robbers. The teachers did not know it at the time, but the robbers had laid out rocks on the highway, intending to cause damage to vehicles so that the drivers would stop and the robbers could steal from them at gunpoint.
Yeah. Walks as Ponzi can make the tower blow.
The bus was carrying 4 teachers and the driver. There were no pupils in the vehicle. They were traveling back to the school after an athletics meeting.
Blue board. I like blue boards. They were nice.
When they hit the rocks and ruptured a tire. There were 3 robbers. 2 were armed with guns and 1 with a knife.
Hold on. I'll be back. Never mind. Let's get going. Two 2022 2/11. Yeah, I heard about this. I actually watched it on the news about this bus being robbed. It looks like a small bus, like one of the buses that has door on the passenger side, and then the doors that swings open. That gun looks fake. It looks like a BB gun.
The assailant stole cell phones, cash, jewelry, and a smartwatch. The bus driver was hit in the face with a gun and sustained a minor jaw injury, but that was the only injury. The robbers then fled the scene, and eventually a tow truck later pulled over to assist. One of the teachers borrowed the tow truck driver's phone and called her fiancé, who notified the authorities. Police soon arrived, and an investigation began. The robbers have still not been identified. Since buses can carry a lot of people, depending on the intent of the people...
This is a nice bus right here. It's a International 3800. This bus you don't have to have a special license since it's not big. This is like I would say about 9-passenger bus, but I like school buses. They're nice.
People looking to target them, they may see extra dollar signs just based on the amount of people on board alone. Even though you don't often hear about these things happening on the news, they do happen. In such situations where people are armed with guns, it's always best to just comply with their orders.
And that's scary things that happen to school buses. And it's from Mr. Nightmare. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button notification bell so you don't miss out on another